Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Slick Pivot Sessions. I'm Liz Ward and this is the podcast where we dig, delve and deconstruct the journeys of people who have pivoted their careers. I know it can feel rough when you're at a pivot point, so we'll be stripping back the sugarcoating and uncovering the pitfalls and progress of our guests, unearthing some practical advice for those of you wanting to make a change. Join me as we crack the formula for making a successful pivot in your life or work. Today's episode is brought to you by The Marshmallowist, gourmet marshmallows in unexpected flavours. If you're stuck for a Mother's Day gift, or you want something more fun than wine and a box of chocolates to take to your next dinner party, then these marshmallows are for you. You can choose your flavours from raspberry and champagne, blueberry and gin, or my own favourite, toasted coconut. To save 15% on your next order, simply go to themarshmallowist.com and enter the code SLICKPIVOT at the checkout. Why not treat someone today to some mallow love? My guest today is Ashley Paré, founder of Own Your Worth and TEDx Speaker. Ashley pivoted from her corporate HR career to be a leadership coach and negotiation advocate. She helps her clients strip back their fears, get confident, communicate effectively, and earn more. Ashley shares her story of a painful exit from her HR job that people knew her for. This point in time shaped everything else for her. After moving back from New York, she started to rebuild in her hometown of Boston. Alongside having a day job, she retrained and started a business as a side hustle before taking the leap a few years later. Ashley's clients have seen pay rises of more than $40,000, and her TEDx talk was a key pivot point where she could really move forward from her previous career. She tells us why you shouldn't ask for a pay rise from an emotional place, why negotiation is a crucial skill in breaking through the ceilings we subconsciously place over our own heads, and if you haven't pushed for a no, you have no idea what else might have been on the table. I hope you enjoy this Slick Pivot session, and if you like what you hear, please subscribe to this podcast, leave a review and a star rating. Subscribers, written reviews and star ratings really help us grow this podcast, reach more people and bring you fantastic guests like Ashley. So hi Ashley, it's so great to have you on the Slick Pivot Sessions podcast.
Hi Liz, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you.
I am such a fan of your work and what you are doing as the fabulous CEO and founder of Own Your Worth, bringing such important tools to women, helping them negotiate, helping them break through glass ceilings. It's just amazing what you're doing in terms of helping people really change their lives. I'm really excited about hearing your story and for everybody else, you know, as this is Slick Pivot Sessions, you are here as an expert, but also as a pivoter yourself. So I'd love us to do is like rewind and like talk about your pivot points that got you to this point as this super negotiation expert. How did you get here?
Great question. I love this idea of pivoting because it's such a, as you know, Liz, big fear for so many people, but it can be so empowering and exciting, and it happens more often than I think we even give ourselves credit for, in terms of like life is always changing, so why not embrace it? So I love your work as well. And let's see. In high school, I knew, so before going to university, I knew I wanted to live in London, believe it or not. That was the first big city I'd ever traveled to when I was a kid growing up. And so my vision for my life at that point was, I'm going to be an author, I'm going to live in a flat in London, and maybe become a psychologist. So that's about all I knew. I knew I would go to university, but you know, life happened along the way, and I ended up studying communications. I never lived in London, but I ended up living in New York City. And so for me, I kind of landed in human resources outside of school, not really knowing what I wanted to do. But I knew I wanted to get work experience before I went back for like a master's degree or anything. And that was probably one of the best decisions I made, because it helped me really understand kind of like what I was good at, what I enjoyed, what I didn't like. And I really learned about business. And so, if we just fast forward to where I am now, I'm more aligned now to what I originally thought I would be doing when I was, a teenager than along the way. So certain changes, shifts, pivots, failures happen to kind of lead me back what I like to call home, to be doing work that really lights me up and aligns with, how I want to make an impact and a difference in the world. So the corporate work that I've done was definitely a crash course in business, which has served me well now as a business owner. But it was a lot of self-discovery and ups and downs managing a career. I've always been someone who kind of just leaps. So I had, a career in Boston in HR, and I always wanted to live in New York City. And so at one point I just said enough is enough, and I quit my job and I moved to New York City without having another job lined up. And I've also done that with like traveling and just even starting my own business. So like once I get my mindset on something, I end up usually leaping and kind of figuring it out as I go. But usually it's after some time like not being happy or fulfilled, and then I really have to look, and then I'm like, you know what, let's just do it, because this is not working.
So it's often, I find with those things, is that you have been gathering information. We say we leap, but actually you've been gathering information for quite a long time to kind of put all that data together, and then it's like, okay, today I'm going to push the button and I'm going to go whoop. And so it's often not an overnight thing, but subconsciously we've been building that data. And so tell us about then the real pivot from corporate into the CEO of Own Your Worth.
Yes, and you're right. It's from the outside, it looks like I make these huge, right, life-changing decisions, but it's been something that, there was a whisper or that subconscious pull for quite some time. So, this is where negotiation comes in. Having worked in human resources, I spent a lot of my career coaching and supporting managers and employees through the onboarding new hire process, through career development, through career growth, through leadership training. And I was always an advocate for others. And being in HR, one of my big struggles was trying to understand, how can I walk that line between supporting an organization and supporting employees? And that's where I that's probably the beginning of the end for me in terms of my formal HR career, because I always felt I had to choose a side. And mostly it was the employer side.
Yeah, sometimes it's quite a lot of tension between what the business wants and what the employee wants, isn't there?
Having witnessed that through my career for other people, it finally came to a head for my own personal career growth, when I realized, I was in what I considered at that time my dream job, but I was overworked, I was stressed out, I was not feeling recognized or valued. I was on the low end of the market in terms of pay, and I was feeling really afraid to self-advocate and to speak up and to ask my boss not only for a raise, but to really ask for what I wanted, which was to be more recognized, more opportunities for growth. And so I waited a long time.
And during that wait, while you were waiting, what was going through your head?
I was getting more frustrated and resentful about the work in the organization, and also just upset with myself because I didn't have the courage to, I think, speak up, but I was also, it became emotional, right? Mm-hmm. Why is this company not taking care of me, right? Why does my boss not see how hard I'm working, right? It became very, personal. And the longer the time went on that I wasn't speaking up, the pivot point came when I got a phone call from Facebook, and they started interviewing me for a potential position. And that's when all these light bulbs went off around what was possible for me in the marketplace in terms of pay and opportunity. And then I finally asked for a raise, and it was from an emotional place. It didn't really go well. I didn't get what I wanted. My fears along the way were that I was going to hear no, and that I would ruin the relationship with my boss. And that kind of was how it felt when it happened. But it was the answer I needed. Like, hearing no for me was the pivot point to start really self-reflecting and deciding, you know what, this is not working for me anymore. And I've known it for a while, but I had to address the emotional components of, what was holding me back from self-advocating, and really go through a grieving period, because I felt like, this job that my identity was so wrapped around, I was leaving it. It wasn't going to be there anymore. So what did that mean for me? So it was kind of like this crash and burn feeling, which ultimately, led to me starting my business, which has been amazing.
But that meeting, the one that you did self-advocate by going to have that conversation and asking for that raise. What I'm hearing is that you went in thinking he's going to say no. And with a lot of emotion. So can you share like what you were thinking, like going in? Were you prepared for it? Were you like excited, or
No, this is where my this leap feeling within me comes out, where I just went and did it. I had waited so long that my preparation was, oh, look, another company is calling me. And this is what I had seen in corporate, right? We as an organization or the other organizations, employees would bring offer letters from other companies and say, I really want to stay here. What can you do for me? And so I thought, this is my opportunity to make a case based off of, other people calling me. So I really just ripped off the Band-Aid. I didn't prepare. And it was emotional for me to even ask at that point. But in my head, I was thinking, you know what, I just need to know. If it's going to be no, that's fine. But I can't live like this anymore type of feeling. And I just have to do it. So I did it.
And you came away from that thinking, okay, now I'm leaving.
Yes.
So what, how did it play out?
Oh, it was really sad. It was really sad. I ended up working with my boss to have a transition period outside of the company. And I was also moving, back to Boston from New York City. So there's a lot of,
so there's a life change as well as the job. It was like you lived in New York City. So the job and the home, and it all came together, that was all over.
Yeah. And that was a big part of the emotional piece for me. Was I was planning to move, and I thought, I'd still have my career. I'd still have this job that was a huge part of my life. But when I realized that, I wasn't going to be keeping that, everything felt like it was different and changing. And that was the beginning of being able to let go of, an old life or an old vision for myself that I had, and really make space to let in something new, let in new ideas, new insights. But it was painful. I know, losing a job, especially when you've attached so much of your self-worth to it, is really difficult. So it was painful, but it was so well worth it.
Yeah, I can totally resonate. It's taken me back to my own experiences in some of those situations where you're just like, oh my God, this is so painful. But there's a side out the other, there's a way out the other side. So what happened for you, and what did you do to kind of rebuild next?
So kind of two things were happening simultaneously. I really got clear about, what were my fears around self-advocating and negotiating. And I knew if it was that difficult for me, having access to salary data, being in human resources, having access to senior leaders and CEOs, I knew that if I had that trouble of speaking up and making an effective case for myself, that, other people, other women must be going through what I went through, if not worse.
Yeah, because essentially you were the HR person, so you had the rule book. You
Yes.
knew what to do.
Yes, exactly. And I helped people do that. But when it came to myself, right, it was a completely different story. So I started teaching salary negotiation workshops, and the light bulb went off in my head, like, aha, this is your platform, Ashley. Like, this is what people want to know. Like, you have an opportunity here to kind of remove the veil of HR and bridge this gap between the employer and employee, which was the place that I struggled. Yes.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
so bridging that gap, I just started telling, it took me a while to be able to tell my story because it still was painful, but I wanted people to know that there was a better way and how to address, right, the emotional side of self-advocating and negotiation, and then also how to effectively build a case so that way you can show your value to your employer and or your boss. So I started kind of down this path of just teaching salary negotiation workshops, and that actually helped me like heal and understand and get clear on what happened with my own career and story. And at the same time, I worked in HR for a couple more years while I was still trying to figure out like, okay, what's happening? So I never really wanted to, or I never thought like I was going to start my own business.
You
I
got a
just
day job
knew
in
I wanted
Boston,
to.
is that what I'm hearing? So you were still in HR. You kind of
Yes.
kept with your,
Yes.
so I call it like, like your career equity. That was the thing that you could do. So you were doing that, and then on the side, were you doing the workshops, or were they part of the
No, they're
job?
on the side. So yes, I kept my day
Okay.
job. I started volunteering teaching these salary negotiation workshops as part of an initiative in Boston to close the gender pay gap.
Okay.
And that was, that's where I actually attended the workshop myself as an attendee. And that's when the light bulb went off, like, aha, I need to be up there teaching this, because what was missing was the entire HR perspective and employer perspective from the original training that I went to. And so I reached out and became a facilitator for those workshops. And it finally hit me when, after one of the workshops, ironically enough, I gave a workshop on this topic at Facebook, and
how funny how these things turn out.
Yes. And I had a long line of women waiting to talk to me. So that was when it became really clear, like, there's something here, and I want this to be what I do full time, and I'm super passionate about it. But it took me, a couple of years to, where I was building my business on the side before I made the ultimate leap to run it full time and leave corporate HR.
Wow. And so how did you know when that time was to do that next leap?
Yes. Well, it was a combination of just being so busy, running my full-time day job, and then also trying to manage, a side hustle, which was becoming a business, that, I knew something had to shift. And also I decided to hire a fantastic coach. I had worked, I had done different programs, but I invested the most I'd invested in myself with this business coach. And it felt like, it was again another, like, wow, what am I doing? Like, if I'm going to quit my job, why am I investing, over $10,000 in a coach? But it was my heart, right, just told me. It was one of those, again, voices, like, you have to do this. And so I gave myself kind of a soft deadline, and I hired a coach, and I more than doubled that investment within the first 3 weeks of working with her, and I've never looked back.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Oh, wow. And so you never look back. And so now you are running Own Your Worth, and you help give women the tools and techniques to really, own their worth.
Mm-hmm.
And what are your, like, if we now look back and go, like, what are your proud moments from doing that?
Definitely my TEDx talk, having the opportunity to get up on a stage and just share a bit of my story, but a bit of, why I think it's so important to own our worth and connect to, right? That inner self that knows, right, we're worth it and that we can achieve and accomplish anything we set our mind to if we give ourselves permission. So definitely having the opportunity, not long after quitting my career to give a talk, to share my voice with the world. So that's been an amazing opportunity and moment. Just being up on that stage, it was like another affirmation for me that like this is what I'm meant to be doing.
It's such a fabulous TED Talk. If
Yeah.
anyone wants to watch it, it's called Have Your Cake and Negotiate Too. And Ashley gives some brilliant tips in that. And what was it like, knowing that you had a TEDx booked and you were going to go and share this message?
It was amazing because this probably resonates with you, Liz, but I wrote down in a journal as part of my vision a couple of years ago that I wanted to give a TEDx talk, and that was it. I just wrote it down as like a stretched dream of mine, and then all of a sudden, a few months later, I got a LinkedIn message where I was being invited to pitch a talk, and I was like, "Whoa, this is crazy and so cool!" So it was such an honor, and there was also a lot of preparation and trying to. For me, that was a big piece where it was like, okay, I'm separating myself from my old former self in my HR career to now sharing my message. So it was difficult to share the personal piece because I still had, to believe it or not, a lot of fear around sharing my story about what happened to me and my boss and my old company, and the stuff runs deep. So it was an opportunity for me to kind of get over that and just put it out there and let it go. And that's why I think I'm really proud of it, because it was not easy, but it was also such an amazing process to be able to work with some great people and again, just share a message with the world.
Yeah, and almost like a real stage for you to work through some of that pain.
Mm-hmm.
I think, I know for me when I've done some public speaking events and prepared to talk about my own experience, it has been that process of like shedding some of that pain and stepping into the now.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I think people find hard to get over is kind of it's letting go of that old world and being in our new power.
Yes.
And by you standing on that TEDx stage and doing that, it's a big kind of footprint in the world to say, this is me now, this is what I believe, this is what I know.
Yes.
Well done.
Thank you.
And what else? What can you give me one more high five moment of something that you're proud of?
I mean, the clients that I get to work with, everyone, just the women and men as well, but my clients, when they own their worth, when they make their asks, when they receive, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 pay increases, but then they're able to tell me, you know what, Ashley, I've never felt more confident in who I am and what's possible for me. Like that, I have those proud moments, every day in working with the people that are ready to step into their power as well. And for me, that's just like been the biggest gift and reward and kind of surprise for me as well. Just how amazing it is to reflect this back with the clients that I get to work with. And so, I just feel grateful and lucky and super excited every day to do work that I love and to help others step into their power, because there's been a ripple effect, Liz, in terms of like my clients will come back and say my friend or my partner or my husband also asked and received a raise. And it's just continuing to grow this message where, especially as women in the workforce, we do have an opportunity to use our voice and to be recognized for our impact. And it can start with us, which is really, really exciting. So for me, it's just been the amazing, and helping other women start their own businesses as well has been a big surprise. That people are coming to me to ask ask for my pivot story and how can they do the same thing. So really helping to, again, give clients a voice to find right, what's next for them.
I was going to say that
Usually,
it's that
go
level of
ahead.
satisfaction. I can hear it in your voice. It's like, having that effect on people's lives and that ripple effect can really keep you going. And I think for me and a lot of people that I work with, it's when they find something that they really believe is making a difference for other people and they can see that happening, really can help motivate you, especially when you are on your own entrepreneurial journey, finding that thing where what it is that you can offer and how you can help, and then seeing that happen is kind of like a bit of a secret in how to grow a business, really, isn't it?
Yes, because it's about so much more than just growing the business.
Exactly. And so I want to ask you one more question about growing your business, and then I really want to dive into owning your worth and how we negotiate. But as somebody that has pivoted and had a side hustle and now running your own successful business, what were the challenges that you found along the way?
Definitely that question of like, when do I leave my steady corporate paycheck? So money stuff came up for sure. Um, and that's why making the decision to hire a coach like got me to where I am now, because coaching is so powerful in terms of it helped me to see, right, and identify the fears that were holding me back and keeping me where I didn't want to be anymore versus being able to take inspired action. So definitely an opportunity to face my fears around failing. What if I burned through all of my savings? What if I had to sell the condo that my husband and I were living in? So I had to have some tough conversations with my husband, to be honest, to share with him that my fear was making this decision to grow my business, to try a business. My big fear was that I would risk everything, including my relationship with him.
Wow.
So that's what I uncovered through coaching. And once I got clear on that fear and was able to talk it through with my husband, and also just get clear on the fact that if I didn't try, I would regret it. That's when I was able to finally really make the leap. And so there was that personal challenge. And then just, the losing the structure of corporate, right? I feel like I'm still even detoxing from having the, always on, 9 to 5 plus career where, for a good year, I'd wake up in the morning, like almost in a panic of what do I need to do? Who did I not respond to? Like just really being able to create a new structure for my life and vision, and giving myself permission to design a business that supports my ideal life versus feeling like, okay, this is just another thing that's gonna weigh me down. So I find in the clients that I've worked with as well, this is can be a big challenge, because I respond well to external expectations.
Yeah. So like if somebody needs you in a meeting room, or if somebody's expecting something from you, that makes you act. Is that?
Yes,
yeah.
Exactly.
And so if you don't have those things because you just started your business, how do you have that structure? How do you have that motivation?
Yes, that was a big
I
one.
sometimes have the opposite thing. Is like, how do I actually stop working? Because there's no structure. So, there's no go home time because I work from home. Is putting in those boundaries as well.
Yes, definitely. It's that just creating a new structure that works for us versus being again always on, or not knowing where to start. That's been a journey for me, and yeah, there's been a few other challenges in terms of like what we see online for how to run an effective business, versus like what I wanted to do or what feels good for me, like social media as an example. So I've kind of just given myself permission to try different things versus like investing in the shiny objects that people say you need to for a business.
You need, because as soon as you start being entrepreneurial and looking at certain websites, then suddenly you get like spammed by all sorts of stuff because of the beautiful Facebook algorithm saying, oh, she must be starting a business. I must send her all these adverts to tell her she must do this and she must do that and she must set up this and do this, and it's really, really overwhelming. And I know that when I started my thing, I had no clue that world was even there, and suddenly I started off and I'm like, I'm quite clear, I know what I want to do, and then I just started getting spammed, and it can cloud your judgment. So like putting barriers around that and going, I'm going to do it my way and this is how I'm going to do it. Sounds like that's what you did. Thank you so much for sharing those, because often people don't talk about these challenges. We think, oh yeah, it's all really shiny and easy. But can you spend a bit of time sharing some tips for us? Like what does owning your worth really mean?
At our core, we're all inherently worthy of receiving abundance, receiving love, receiving gratitude, that it's our birthright to have an ideal life and career, whatever that means for you. And so it's about getting paid fairly and competitively for the work that you do, because that's how you show up in the world. But it's also just having this deep confidence and inner trust that you are enough. And I feel like in our society, especially now more than ever, there's so much comparison. There's so much, I feel behind, or I should be here, or beating ourselves up for not doing X, Y, or Z 10 years ago, where it's really about how to own your worth to create your future from an ideal place. So negotiation, I think, is one skill set that's really needed in breaking that glass ceilings. Oftentimes it's our own glass ceiling, right? We don't think we're worth $100,000, $200,000, and so we hold ourselves back. And then there's also the societal glass ceilings that we have to face in terms of biases. So it's how do you know that no matter what's happening outside of you, you are enough? Because from that place, you can create anything, and that's where your power lives. So for me, that's what own your worth means.
That's beautiful, and such an important message, because we are worthy, but it's all about being in our own power and having that strength to know that you're okay no matter what's going on, actually. and so if someone was thinking about having a negotiation, what tips can you share on that? Like what might be going on for them, and how can they, what would you like to share around helping people out with thinking about negotiating?
Yeah, I think the first question to ask yourself if you're thinking about negotiating is, what fears do you have? So what's either held you back up until this point, or what preconceived notions do you have about asking for and or receiving more money? Because a big part of negotiation is connected to our feelings around worthiness, but also our relationship with money. So the first step is, kind of the piece that I didn't personally address, was all of my emotions around not feeling valued, not feeling heard, but then being upset with myself that, I didn't speak up sooner. So looking at our inner world, the emotional components of, why are we ready to negotiate? Why would it be important for me to be recognized for this work? And ideally, what do I want to receive? So what would be an ideal outcome? Are you looking for a $10,000 increase? Is it that colleagues and peers are making 50 grand more than you? So getting really clear on why you're ready to negotiate and what your ideal outcome would be before you talk to anybody, before you sit down with your boss, before you have that meeting. Like, you need to prepare. So preparation is huge for negotiation on our own part, because we cannot control what our company or what our boss or what our potential new employer might say. But if we take the time to understand our fears, get clear on what we want to ask for, and also be willing to walk away, that sets you up to have constructive conversations that can build relationships with your boss versus tearing them down, because it's not ultimately about if you get it or not, right? If you can detach the outcome from, again, your worthiness, then you're ready to negotiate. Because if you ask and you hear no, it's usually always better than never asking, right? Because the answer will always be no.
Yeah, I know that you say if you haven't had a negotiation
Yes.
unless you've heard the word no.
Mm-hmm.
So if you haven't heard the word no, you've just asked for something that was a no-brainer. Is that what you mean by that?
Yeah, it's just if you haven't pushed to a no, then you don't know what else is on the table. You don't know where where the other party is drawing a line. You don't know, right, what's possible. The no is where you can say, okay, that's your no, this is my no, so how do we find a yes in between?
Yeah, that's your no, that's my no. How do we find a yes in between? And what about the timings then for negotiation? What's the best time or worst time to do it?
Worst time is when you're emotional and you had a bad day and you just want to go in there and tell your boss how you really feel. I don't recommend that. So also, it can, depending on your organization, asking for a raise at your performance review meeting is not typically ideal, because usually I'm not sure if it works exactly the same way in the UK, but I think so. Usually budgets are already allocated before you have that meeting. So you usually aren't giving yourself enough runway to have your boss advocate for you before your meeting. So if you're going into a performance review discussion and you want to talk about a raise or a promotion, you can probably expect that it's going to be 3 to 6 months out until you actually see it. So I guess
so what you're saying is ask earlier. Don't wait
time.
to that end of year review and be like, okay, where's my pay rise? I've been great all year. Prep them earlier.
Yes.
And so start dropping that into the conversation, or probably set a meeting in place so that you can have that chat a lot earlier.
Yeah. Yes. So don't wait until you need that raise now, because it's not going to happen that fast, most likely. So give yourself time and give your boss time by bringing it up sooner rather than later and doing that prep work. And really the best time to ask is if you've taken on more responsibilities, if you've just closed a big deal, if you've just completed a big project, if you've received a lot of recognition, if you know that you're operating at a level above what you were originally brought in at. So these are all, negotiation is really just conversations, especially with your employer, to understand the value and impact you're bringing to the company and how that aligns with their salary bands and levels within the organization. So giving your boss as much information as possible from an impact standpoint can help them advocate on your behalf to get you a raise.
So because they're advocating on your behalf. It's not about you convincing them. It's almost like you giving them the information to go and be your representative to keep you on their team, kind of thing. Yeah.
Yes. Because if you hear no from your boss, then you have, then there's a lot more there to uncover.
Yeah.
Right? Are you?
And so at that point, I suppose you're probably looking for some feedback around what's going on. And
yes.
It doesn't have to always be about money either, does it? I know a lot of people that want to negotiate their working hours and things like that. Do you help people with that too?
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. A lot of negotiation can be with a vendor. As a business owner, you could negotiate the terms of a contract or the rates, or yes, as a new mom returning to the workforce, maybe you want to negotiate a slower return to work or flexible work hours or working from home. Sometimes, depending on where you are in your life, understanding yes, it's important that you're paid fairly from a base pay and overall compensation package, but what else is important to you, right? Is it training and development? Is it an opportunity for growth? Is it the flexibility to work from home? Is it travel? Is it something else, right? So that changes for us depending on where we are in our life, and being able to negotiate, again, from a place of, if you're able to allow me to work from home, right, 2 days a week, right, this is what you'll receive in return, right? So being able to articulate that the company is still getting something, right, for giving you this benefit, is really important, right? You don't have to feel, I know a lot of people feel perhaps guilty, like, oh, if I work from home, that means I have to do more. I have to overwork.
Yeah, I hear that a lot. Hear that a lot. I'm working from home, so I'm going to work
Yes.
really, really, really hard just to prove the point that I'm at home, and I must send loads and loads of emails throughout the whole day just to kind of
Yes.
show them that you're online, because I think we all have this perception that people that work from home are skiving off, which I absolutely
Yes.
think that is not true, because I think people can be
Yes.
very, very focused at home. But what's going on there, and
Yeah,
how can we get
it's
around that?
also about setting boundaries for yourself, right? Because working from home, we end up working more, right? There's no commute involved. There's no
Yeah.
taking a coffee break with your colleagues and chatting about lunchtime. It's like working all the time. So making sure that you are recognizing that you're doing enough, and how do you articulate that? So putting a plan in place with your boss, like, hey, we'll have a weekly check-in or a bi-weekly meeting, like something where you have the opportunity to show, right, and articulate, oh, this is what I was able to accomplish, not daily, it's not like a checking in, but are you meeting your goals ultimately, right? And how do you have that conversation with your boss? Because at the end of the day, we can't control other people's perceptions, but as long as your boss is happy with your performance, then for me that's enough, right? It's trusting that you're doing a great job, and that you can get your job done from anywhere.
Yeah, and I think that's about, like, yes, again, stepping into that power and knowing, okay, I've got autonomy because I am working from home, so I'm going to be that kind of autonomous leader
Mm-hmm.
and say, here's my plan. Like, this is what I'm doing at the moment. This is what I've done last week. Here's an update on this,
Yes.
and off I go. Yeah, being less like, here, look at this every single day,
Yes.
and they will trust and respect you there as
Yeah.
well. Thank you so much for those tips. So, knowing where you are now, and creating your work, and the business, own your worth, what, and thinking about your pivot points, what would the old Ashley say to the new Ashley?
The old Ashley said to the new Ashley. I don't know. What came up was just be brave. Continue to be brave.
Be brave.
Continue to speak up. Continue to be you. Um, yeah, I don't think for a while in my life and career, I wasn't in that power. So the old me is proud of me for being brave and wants her to continue.
Yeah, oh, well done. So be brave, be brave. And what do you think the formula is to creating a career pivot? So, like, what different factors kind of were important to you to put, and when you look back and reflect,
Mm.
have almost been your pivot formula?
Yes, having support. So, well, first of all, getting clear on what I wanted, right? So we have to be clear in our conviction in this vision that we want for our life. And even if other people say we're crazy, if we know we want it, it starts there. And then I think creating a support network. And for me, support was also financial, right? I had negotiated throughout my career. I was still able to save money, and that gave me a sense of a little bit of security, right? To be able to say, okay, I've worked really hard. Not only am I going to ask for support from, hiring a coach and my husband, but also I know I have this runway. So that's another reason why, there's options with money. So creating support in whatever that looks like for you. And then just being kind to yourself along the way. Things are almost never work out right exactly to our plan. So kind of giving yourself that grace to go with the flow, to be surprised, to continue to pivot even as you've pivoted, to find your flow or your groove, and that you get to do it your way. That's part of the benefit, I think, in terms of being a business owner now, is you can try and experiment and explore, and that's half the fun.
Yeah, and like seeing it as fun.
Yes.
And knowing and being open and curious, I definitely think are skills you kind of learn along the way. And I know for me, I'm like micro pivoting all the time.
Yeah.
Do I like this? Does it feel good? Do I like doing this kind of activity? Do I like doing this kind of like marketing thing? Do I like working with these kind of people? Constantly checking in with that to refine and tweak. I think when you've been through a big transition, you kind of get better at doing that along the way.
Yes.
What is next for you? Can I tell the listeners? You're currently 38 weeks pregnant. So a big pivot is coming up, the pivot to motherhood. So congratulations.
Yes. Thank you, Liz.
That's what's next to you. But what else as well? What do you see the rest of 2020 holding?
Yes, so this is probably going to be my biggest pivot and biggest transition in life, and so I'm excited to become a mom and then get to redefine my business, my work, what being a mother means to me, and creating my ideal life from this perspective. So I'm definitely planning on sharing my journey, because I know so many of us go through this as well, and I've just launched the Negotiator program. So it's my first online self-paced program with all of my HR insider insights, step-by-step, on how to not only address the emotional and money components of negotiation, but the effective corporate language that you can use to professionally build a case and negotiate for your career. So for me, it's really about having that out there in the world. Feels really, really great to be able to share those insights. And for me, I just want to continue speaking on stages and sharing my story and meeting, spreading the Own Your Worth message. So I think a lot of speaking this year and empowering people to negotiate.
Lovely. It's so amazing that you brought this message and really, really helping people, because that HR insight, that corporate insight combined with the self-worth work is such a beautiful combination. So where can people find you? And maybe we won't find you for a little while because you're going to be cuddling the baby. When where are you at?
I am online, of course. My website is ownyourworth.com, and I have lots of free resources there that you can download in terms of, if you head over to my blog page, and if there's a topic there, I've included a lot of ebooks, so you can reach me on my website, or I will be sharing, this new motherhood journey on Instagram as well, and my Instagram handle is ownyourworth. And Liz, I want to offer, for any of your listeners who want these negotiation skills, I'm going to share a discount code for your listeners if they want to take a look at the Negotiator program.
Absolutely. And we will put that, give you that information in the show notes and at the end, so that you can access more of Ashley to help you in your pivots and owning your own worth. Thank you so much for coming on, Ashley.
Yay. Thank you, Liz, for having me. It was wonderful.
You've been listening to the Slick Pivot Sessions with me, Liz Ward, the podcast for life's achievers and believers. I hope you've enjoyed listening as much as I've enjoyed making this podcast. Please take a moment to rate and review us on Apple or Google or wherever you get your podcasts. This really helps us grow and continue to bring you amazing guests. The show notes have all the links and references from today's session. Ashley has offered listeners of this podcast a 20% saving on the Negotiator program. Go to ownyourworth.com and use the code PIVOT20 to access the program. For one-to-one coaching or to find out about my Pivot Power programme, log on to slickpivot.com. Until our next session together, stay nimble and remember, no pivot is ever slick.